Rian adjusted the straps of his repair kit as he stepped off the small transport shuttle. The air on this newly discovered planet was crisp and cool, carrying a faint, sweet scent from the nearby trees. Above him, the sky had two suns, one pale and one bright, casting long golden light across the forest. His task was simple. The exploration crew had detected strange readings from a sensor array. They had left on the planet's surface a few weeks ago. Rian had been sent to fix it. He expected a quiet job. No one had reported any signs of life here. The forest was calm. Leaves rustled gently in the breeze, and the ground was soft beneath his boots. He followed the blinking signal on his wrist device, stepping over roots and pushing through thick shrubs. Every so often, he would glance around, more out of habit than fear. He had been too many worlds before. Most were empty, quiet, and harmless. This one seemed no different. After nearly 20 minutes of walking, the signal led him to a small clearing. At first, he thought it was empty. Then he froze. Someone was there. In the center of the clearing stood a tall figure. She had pale silver markings on her skin that seemed to shift slightly in the light. Her long hair, a deep shade of copper, flowed down her back. She was adjusting a shimmering cloth, almost like a robe, round her shoulders. But at the moment Rian stepped into the clearing, she turned sharply, her wide eyes locking on him. Her hands stopped moving. She looked startled, almost like someone caught in a private moment. Rian raised both hands slowly, showing he meant no harm. "Sorry," he said, his voice calm. "I didn't know anyone was here." She didn't answer, not in words Rian could understand. Instead, she spoke in a soft, musical tone, her language unfamiliar. The sound was unlike anything he had heard before, a blend of melody and rhythm that was almost like singing. Her eyes, though, spoke clearly. She was cautious. She was also trying to judge whether he was a danger. He glanced at her shimmering cloth. It seemed important, not just clothing, maybe ceremonial. She pulled it tight around herself. Though her stance remained firm, she didn't look weak. If anything, she looked like someone used to being in control. Rian took a careful step forward, but then stopped when her gaze sharpened. He switched on the portable translator attached to his belt. The small device whirred softly, catching her words as she spoke again. "You should not be here," the translator finally said in a flat voice, repeating her speech in standard. "This place is not for your kind." Rian hesitated. "I'm here to fix a sensor. I didn't mean to disturb you." The woman's eyes softened slightly, but she didn't lower her guard. "You came without warning. This is dangerous for you and for me." "Dangerous?" Rian asked. "Why?" She glanced round the clearing as if checking for hidden eyes. Then she looked back at him. "Because I'm not meant to be seen like this, without my formal armor. I break the law of my people. If others learn you saw me, it will cause trouble." Rian's mind raced. She wasn't just anyone. She spoke with an air of authority, and her words carried the weight of someone used to giving orders. He noticed the way she stood, upright, balanced, steady. She was no ordinary inhabitant. Whoever she was important. "I don't want to cause trouble," Rian said honestly. "I just came to do my job." The woman studied him for a long moment. Then, as if making a decision, she motioned for him to follow. "Come. We should not speak here." Rian glanced at the signal on his wrist device. The sensor array could wait. Something told him this meeting was far more important than any broken equipment. He followed her as she moved swiftly toward a dense wall of vines. Without hesitation, she parted them, revealing a narrow path that sloped downward. It was almost invisible from the outside. They walked in silence, the forest growing darker as the path dipped deeper underground. Strange, glowing plants lined the walls, casting soft blue light. Rian found himself glancing at the woman now and then. She moved gracefully, every step purposeful. Her shimmering cloth caught the light, revealing tiny patterns woven into it. Symbols, perhaps. They reminded him of ancient carvings he had seen in museums. Finally, the path opened into a vast cavern. Rian's eyes widened. It was like stepping into another world. Towering stone pillars rose toward the ceiling, carved with detailed shapes. Pools of water reflected the blue glow of the plants, and a faint hum seemed to vibrate through the air, as if the cavern itself was alive. "This is where my people live," the woman said. Her voice carried a quiet pride. "We stay hidden from the surface. It has been this way for many generations." Rian turned to her. "Who are you?" She paused, then met his eyes. "I am Leora, daughter of the High Ruler of the Crystal Realms. I am what you would call a princess." Rian's eyebrows lifted. He had guessed she was important, but hearing it confirmed sent a shiver down his spine. A princess, hidden in the depths of a world no one had known was inhabited. "Why? Were you on the surface?" he asked out. Her gaze dropped for a moment. "I was searching, but not for anything I can speak of yet. It is a matter I must keep private." Rian understood the hint. She was not going to explain further. Not now. Still, he had more questions than answers. Leora's eyes returned to his. "You are human, yes? From the stars?" "Yes," Rian said. "We came to explore. We didn't know anyone lived here." "Then you have already learned too much," she said softly. "And now you must decide if you will keep my secret or risk the anger of my people." Rian felt the weight of her words. This was no ordinary encounter. He had stumbled into something much larger than himself. He didn't know what dangers lay ahead, but he could see one thing clearly. This meeting would change everything. Rian stood in the great cavern, still trying to take in the sight of the hidden world around him. The air felt warmer here, touched by a faint floral scent. The blue glow from the plants reflected on the surface of the underground pools, making the water look like liquid sky. Princess Leora began walking along a narrow stone path that curved deeper into the cavern. Rian followed, careful not to step too close, sensing that she still didn't completely trust him. Her shimmering cloth flowed behind her as she moved, and her silver markings seemed brighter in the glow. "You must not speak of this place to your people," she said without turning. "I understand," Rian replied, "but it would help if I knew why." They passed through a carved archway into another chamber. This one was smaller, with walls covered in symbols and painted patterns. Rian recognized some shapes that looked like stars, planets, and curved lines that might be flight paths. Others were unfamiliar, maybe maps or stories from her people's history. Leora stopped in front of a round table carved from a single block of crystal. The surface was smooth, with faint lines that pulsed gently with light. She touched the table and looked at Rian. "Sit." He took the seat opposite her. The chair was cool and hard, shaped in a way that felt both ancient and advanced at the same time. Leora spoke a few words in her own language. The crystal table responded, projecting faint symbols into the air between them. Rian's translator tried to catch up, blinking rapidly. The device repeated her words in standard. "This is our way of speaking to outsiders," she explained. "It is slow, but it works." Rian leaned forward. "You said you were on the surface without your armor. Is that really such a serious thing?" She met his gaze directly. "Yes. My people believe the ruler's bloodline must always appear strong and unshaken. The armor is part of that image. Without it, I am seen as ordinary. That is dangerous for a leader." Rian could hear the weight in her voice. It wasn't just about clothing. It was about tradition, image, and authority. "I didn't mean to see something I shouldn't," Rian said. "If it helps, I can say I saw no one at all." Leora studied him for a moment, her eyes searching his face as if trying to read his thoughts. "You are different from others I have met. You speak with care." "I try," Rian said with a small smile. Her gaze softened slightly. Then she tapped the table again, and new images appeared in the air. This time Rian saw star maps dotted with tiny lights. One point was marked in bright red. "This is your world," she said, pointing to it. She pointed to another mark, this one blue. "This is mine. Between us is space that belongs to no one, but danger travels through it." Rian frowned. "Danger?" Her voice grew quieter. "There are others beyond our worlds. They move without warning. They take resources, ships, sometimes people. My father's council believes they will never come here. I know better." "Is that why you were on the surface?" Rian asked. "Yes," she said. I was looking for signs of their approach. I found nothing today, but I cannot stop searching. The translator carried her words clearly, but Rian could hear something more in her tone, worry, mixed with determination. He thought for a moment before speaking. If this danger is real, maybe we can help. My people have ships, technology, and he hesitated. And we don't like bullies. Leora tilted her head, the faintest trace of a smile touching her lips. You speak as if you were a soldier. No. Rian said, I'm an engineer. I fix things, but I've seen enough to know when trouble is coming. She tapped the table again, and the star map faded. Then perhaps you can fix something more than machines. Rian wasn't sure what she meant, but he didn't get the chance to ask. A soft chime echoed through the chamber. Leora rose to her feet quickly. We must go. This room is for private talks. If the council knows you are here before I am ready, they will send you away, or worse. Rian followed her out of the chamber, his mind racing. The path wound through a network of tunnels, each lined with glowing crystals. Now and then, they passed tall figures in silver armor, each carrying a long staff with a blade at one end. They looked at Rian with suspicion but did not stop him. Finally, they reached a balcony overlooking the largest part of the underground city. Rian's breath caught. The city stretched far beyond what he had imagined. Stone bridges connected tall spires that rose from the cavern floor. Waterfalls spilled from hidden openings high above, feeding rivers that glowed softly in the dim light. Strange flying creatures with wings like glass moved between towers. Everywhere, there was movement. People walking, speaking, trading, working. This is my home, Leora said quietly beside him. It is beautiful, but beauty can be fragile. Rian understood. A place like this, hidden for generations, would have no defense if a hostile force came suddenly. She looked at him again. I brought you here because I think you may help me convince my people, but I cannot promise it will be easy. They will not welcome you. I'm used to people not welcoming me at first, Rian said lightly. Usually, they like me once I fix something important. Her eyes narrowed slightly, but in a way that suggested amusement rather than anger. Then you will have your chance soon. Before he could reply, a figure in silver armor approached them quickly, bowing slightly to Leora. The guard spoke in the musical alien language, and Rian's translator caught enough to understand the message. The council was calling for the princess immediately. Leora's expression tightened. She looked at Rian. Stay close, and say very little. With that, she turned and began walking toward the heart of the city. Her steps fast and deliberate. Rian followed, knowing that whatever came next could decide whether he stayed here or was sent back to his ship forever. The path toward the council chamber wound through the heart of the underground city. Rian stayed a step behind Princess Leora, keeping his eyes open as they passed through wide halls, crystal bridges, and open terraces. The air was filled with soft echoes of voices, footsteps, and the gentle sound of water running in carved channels along the streets. Everywhere he looked, Rian saw signs of a civilization that blended nature and technology. Tall buildings seemed to grow out of the stone itself, their walls carved with flowing patterns that caught the blue light of the glowing plants. Floating lanterns moved slowly through the air, letting the paths without any visible ropes or supports. People wore robes, armor, or a mix of both, and many carried slender devices at their belts. Yet, despite the beauty, Rian noticed something else: the way many citizens looked at him. Some glanced curiously, but others looked at him with suspicion or even disapproval. He felt the weight of their stares. They reached a wide plaza at the base of a towering crystal spire. Guards in silver armor stood on both sides of the large doorway. Each guard held a long staff tipped with a sharp blade that glimmered faintly. The guards stepped aside for Leora, but their eyes followed Rian as he passed. Inside, the air grew cooler, and the light dimmed. The walls were lined with tall columns that stretched up to a vaulted ceiling. At the far end of the hall sat a circle of raised seats, each occupied by a figure in ornate clothing. Some wore crowns of metal and crystal, others wore long robes, woven with intricate symbols. This was the council. Leora stopped in the center of the hall. Rian stood beside her, silent as she had instructed. The council members watched them with unreadable expressions. One of the counselors, an older man with pale silver hair, leaned forward. His voice was deep, calm, but carried authority. "Princess Leora, you have returned from the surface sooner than expected, and you bring a stranger." Leora inclined her head respectfully. "Yes." "Counselor Verith, this is Rian, an engineer from a visiting human exploration ship. I met him during my survey on the surface." Murmurs passed through the council. Some members leaned closer to whisper to each other. Others stared at Rian more directly now, their eyes sharp. Verith's gaze did not leave Rian. "Our agreement with the humans was simple. They would study the skies and waters, but they would not come into our home." "Why is he here?" Leora's tone remained steady. "Because I believe he may help us. The situation beyond our borders is not as safe as many wish to believe." Another counselor, a woman with a crown shaped like interlocking wings, spoke sharply. "We have heard this warning before. Princess, you speak of unseen threats, yet you bring no proof. And now you risk exposing our sanctuary to an outsider." Rian stayed still, his hands behind his back, resisting the urge to defend himself. He remembered Leora's words, "Say very little." Leora faced the wing-crowned woman without flinching. "Proof is difficult to bring when danger moves in shadows, but I will not ignore the signs. And this man," she glanced at Rian, "understands the ways of machines and sensors. He can help us detect what approaches before it is too late." The hall grew quiet. The council members exchanged looks. Counselor Verith tapped a crystal embedded in the arm of his seat. "Even if his skills are useful, bringing him here may cause fear among our people. Outsiders have not walked these halls for many lifetimes." Leora's voice took on a sharper edge. "Then perhaps it is time. The world is changing beyond our caves and rivers. If we hide too long, we may find we are surrounded before we even know it." The council murmured again, their voices overlapping. Rian couldn't follow the conversation without the translator, and the device struggled with so many voices speaking at once. Finally, Verith raised a hand, and the room fell silent. "The council will decide. For now, the human will remain in the guest's quarters. He will not roam freely. We will allow the princess to present her case tomorrow, with whatever evidence she believes will convince us." Leora bowed her head slightly. "As you wish." The meeting ended as quickly as it began. The guard stepped forward, not threatening, but making it clear Rian was expected to follow. Leora gave him a brief look, something between reassurance and warning, before she turned back to speak quietly with Verith. Rian was led through several corridors to a set of tall doors carved with flowing lines. The guard opened them to reveal a small but comfortable room. The walls were smooth stone, with soft blue light coming from embedded crystals. A bed carved from dark wood stood in the corner, covered with a thick blanket. There was a basin of water on a low table and a small shelf with strange tools and objects. When the guard left, Rian let out a slow breath. He walked to the balcony and looked out. From here, he could see a part of the city stretching into the distance, its spires and bridges glowing faintly in the dim cavern light. It was beautiful and fragile. He thought about Leora's words, danger from beyond, a threat the council refused to believe. He had seen that kind of thinking before, on other worlds. People often ignored danger until it was too late. There was a soft knock. At the door, Rian turned, and to his surprise, Leora stepped in, carrying a small crystal tablet. "They allowed you to visit me?" he asked. "No," she said simply. "I allowed myself." She set the crystal tablet on the table. It glowed faintly, showing streams of symbols and images. "This is what I could not show them yet. Sensor readings from the far edges of our star system. Patterns that should not be there." Rian leaned closer. "Those are power signatures. And they're not from your people, are they?" "No," Leora said. "And they are moving closer." Rian looked up at her. "Then we don't have much time." Leora nodded once. "Tomorrow, I will speak to the council. But I need you to help me make them listen." The glow from the crystal tablet lit the small guest room with a soft blue light. Rian studied the readings on the display. Lines of alien symbols ran across the screen. But Leora had translated enough for him to understand the important parts. The data showed faint bursts of energy far from the planet, well beyond the orbit of its outer moons. At first glance, they looked like natural signals from space. Maybe solar flares or asteroid collisions. But Rion had seen similar patterns before, and he knew what they meant. These are ships. Rion said quietly, big ones, and they're using power cores I've never seen in your technology. Leora's expression was serious. You believe me, then? I believe you before, Rion replied. But this is proof. The problem is, I don't think your council will see it the same way unless we give them more. She leaned forward slightly. What kind of proof will they accept? Rion thought for a moment. If we can link this data to a live reading, something they can see happening right now, it might be harder for them to ignore. That would require access to the high-range scanners. Leora said, only the council controls them. They are in the upper chamber of the Tower of Sight. Rion gave a small grin. Then I guess we'll have to get into the Tower of Sight. Leora tilted her head. You speak as if this will be simple. It won't be, Rion admitted. But if the enemy is already moving closer, we can't wait for permission. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Very well. Meet me here after the third bell tomorrow morning. The guards will think I'm showing you more of the city. When she left, Rion lay back on the bed, staring at the crystal-lit ceiling. The cavern city was peaceful now, but if the incoming ships were hostile, that peace wouldn't last long. He had to help Leora make her people understand. No matter what rules they had to bend. The next morning, the city was alive with movement. From his balcony, Rion saw merchants setting up small market stalls along the bridges. Their goods arranged in neat rows. Children darted between the streets, laughing as they chased each other around the carved pillars. It was hard to believe that danger might already be on its way to this world. The third bell rang, its deep tone echoing through the cavern. Rion left his room and found Leora waiting in the hall, wearing a more formal robe that shimmered faintly in the light. Two guards followed at a distance, their faces expressionless. They walked together through the winding streets, passing through a series of arches that led toward the base of the Tower of Sight. The tower rose so high it almost touched the cavern ceiling, its surface covered in spiraling patterns of crystal and stone dot inside. The air was cool and still. Long ramps curled upward around the walls, leading to higher levels. They climbed in silence, the guards remaining a few steps behind Dot at the top. They entered a wide circular chamber. Large crystal panels stood in a ring around the room, each one glowing faintly. The panels showed shifting images of space, stars, moons, drifting asteroids. In the center was a raised platform with a control console carved from white stone. Its surface set with dozens of small lights. Two operators stood by the console, speaking quietly to each other in the melodic language of Leora's people. They looked up as she entered, bowing slightly. Princess, one said, we were not told you would be here today. I wish to see the skies myself, Leora replied calmly. There is a matter I must confirm. The operators hesitated, glancing at each other. Of course, Princess. But the Council has ordered restricted access to the outer scans. Leora's voice remained smooth, but there was a firmness in her tone. Then I will take responsibility for what is seen here. Prepare the long-range array. The operators obeyed, adjusting the controls. The crystal panels brightened, showing a broader view of the star system. Rion stepped forward slightly, studying the display. He pointed toward a faint distortion at the edge of the screen. Can you focus there? He asked. The operators looked uncertain, but Leora gave a small nod, and they adjusted the controls. The distortion grew clearer, a cluster of small shapes against the blackness of space. They were moving together in a tight formation. Rion's stomach tightened. That's a fleet. They're using energy shields. That's why the readings were so faint before, and they're on a direct course for this planet. One of the operators frowned. They could be traitors. Rion shook his head. Not in that formation, and not with shields up. Leora turned to the operators. Record this and send a copy to the council chambers. Mark it as urgent. The operators nodded quickly, already moving to follow her command. As they stepped away from the console, Leora spoke in a low voice to Rian. This will force them to take the matter seriously, but I cannot predict what their response will be. Some may still say we should remain hidden and hope the danger passes. Rian glanced at her. Hope isn't a strategy. If they wait too long, they won't have time to act. Her eyes narrowed slightly, as if she were already planning something in her mind. Then we must be ready, even if they are not, by the time they return to the streets below. News of the sighting had already begun to spread. People whispered in the markets, and on the bridges, their faces tense. Some looked toward the distant cavern walls as if they could see the threat coming. In the guest quarters, Rian and Leora met again that evening. She placed another crystal tablet on the table, this one showing a map of the underground city. If the enemy comes, the council will seal the main gates and hide. But that will not stop a determined force. Our defenses are old, and most are no longer active. Then we need to get them working again, Rian said. She nodded. There are ancient defense systems deep in the crystal caverns beneath the city. They have not been used in generations. Some say they would no longer work at all. But if anyone can restore them, you're thinking that's my job. Rian said double quotes yes. Leora replied simply, and if we succeed, we may have a chance, whether the council agrees with us or not. The camp had grown tense over the past 2 days. Mira's recovery had been steady, but she remained quiet. Her eyes often wandered to the mountains, as if she expected something to come from them. Rian noticed this, but didn't push her for answers. He knew there was still much she hadn't told him. On the third evening, just as the sun began to sink and the clouds turned orange, Rian spotted movement high above. It was faint, almost blending with the clouds, but the shape was too precise to be natural. A ship, and not one from Earth. Mira, he called quietly. She joined him, her gaze following where he pointed. Her lips tightened. They are here, she whispered. Rian felt a cold knot form in his stomach. Who? The ones who want me, she replied. They will not leave until they find me. He stared at her, feeling the weight of her words. Then we need to hide you. She shook her head. No place on this planet can hide me from their scanners. We must move before they can pinpoint us. Rian began packing quickly, grabbing what little food and supplies they had. The forest offered cover, but if the alien ship had advanced sensors, their trail would be easy to follow. Mira, however, seemed to know the land, or perhaps she could sense something beyond Rian's understanding. They traveled through the night, following a narrow path that led deeper into the mountains. The air grew colder, and the trees thinned. By dawn, they reached the entrance to a vast cave system. Mira stopped and turned to Rian. This place was once sacred to my people, she explained. There are tunnels here they cannot easily search. But the deeper we go, the more dangerous it becomes. Rian glanced into the dark cave, the smell of damp stone and earth filling his senses. Dangerous how? She hesitated before answering. There are creatures here, not from my world, not from yours. They dwell in the dark and do not like intruders. Before he could reply, a faint humming filled the air. Rian stepped back outside and looked up. The ship was closer now, massive shadow gliding silently through the sky. Its surface reflected the light in strange patterns, almost as if it were alive. They're scanning, Mira said, pulling him back inside. We must go now. They entered the cave, their footsteps echoing against the stone walls. Rian lit a small torch, the flame casting flickering shadows. The air grew colder as they descended, and the walls narrowed until they were moving single file. After an hour, they came to a large underground chamber. Strange markings covered the walls, symbols that glowed faintly in the torchlight. Mira ran her fingers over them. These are warnings, she murmured. We must be careful. A sound echoed from the darkness ahead, a low, rumbling growl. Rian tightened his grip on the torch, scanning the shadows. Two glowing eyes appeared, followed by another set, and then another. Mira, he whispered. What are those? Her voice was steady but urgent. Guardians. They will not let us pass unless they believe we belong here. The creatures stepped into the light. They were unlike anything Rian had seen. tall, with elongated limbs and skin that shimmered like wet stone. Their faces were featureless except for the glowing eyes. Mira stepped forward, speaking in a language Rian didn't understand. The creatures tilted their heads, listening. For a long moment, there was silence. Then, slowly, they stepped aside, allowing them to pass Dot as they moved deeper into the tunnels. Rian glanced back. The Guardians watched them but did not follow. They let us through, he said quietly. Mira nodded. For now, ours passed. The cave twisted and branched in ways that seemed impossible at times. Rian felt as though they were walking in circles, but Mira seemed certain of their path. Finally, they reached a vast cavern with a pool of still water at its center. This is the heart of the mountain, Mira said. From here, I can call for help. Rian frowned. I thought you said no one could find us without scanners. My people can, she explained. But once I send the signal, the others will know. Too, we will have little time. Before she could act, the ground shook violently. Dust and small stones fell from the ceiling. The rumbling grew louder, and a beam of strange light pierced the far wall. They found us, Rian said. Mira's expression hardened. Then we stand together. The air in the underground chamber was cool and faintly humming with energy from the strange alien devices embedded in the walls. Rian walked forward slowly, his eyes fixed on the holographic map projected in the center of the room. The glowing lines showed the position of the enemy ships approaching the moon's orbit. The enemy fleet was larger than he feared. He knew they had only hours before they would be surrounded. The alien princess, Leora, stood on the far side of the room near a tall control pillar. She was scanning the streams of alien symbols scrolling down a vertical screen. Her eyes were sharp and focused, yet her posture was tense. Rian could see she was holding herself together. Despite the pressure, we cannot fight them in open space, she said, her voice steady but edged with concern. Their firepower will destroy the station in minutes. Rian stepped closer, looking over the alien data. Then we need to find something that gives us an advantage. You said there are ancient defenses hidden here. Leora nodded. She turned and pressed her hand against the pillar. The wall beside her slid open with a hiss, revealing a dark tunnel lit by soft blue lights along the floor. There is a weapon chamber, she explained, but no one has entered it for centuries. It was sealed to protect what lies inside. Only a member of my bloodline can open it fully. Without waiting for Rian's reply, she started walking into the tunnel. He followed, his boots echoing against the metallic floor. The walls seemed to pulse faintly with energy as they moved deeper underground. As they walked, Rian noticed the tunnel branching into smaller passageways that led into silent storage rooms. He saw broken alien machines stacked against the walls, ancient and forgotten. How far does this place go? He asked quietly. It stretches across half the moon, Leora replied. My ancestors built it during the first expansion war. It was a refuge and a last defense. But the weapon we seek, it was never used. The power required to activate it was considered too dangerous. After several minutes, they arrived at a massive circular door. Strange curved symbols glowed along its edge. Leora placed her hands on two panels, and the door shuddered. A deep rumble echoed through the ground. As the symbols flared brighter, then the door slid open with a slow grinding. Sound. Inside was a wide chamber bathed in a soft white glow. In the center stood a large sphere of crystal, suspended above the floor by invisible force. Thin arcs of light danced across its surface. Round it, tall stone-like structures rose in a ring, each carved with alien writing. Rian stepped inside, feeling the temperature shift slightly. The air here was heavy, charged with static. What is it? He asked. This is the heart of Vera, Leora said, her voice carrying a note of reverence. It is a core that can control the energy of this moon. It can shield us, or destroy everything in its reach. My ancestors feared it. They swore never to use it except in the greatest need. Rian's eyes narrowed as he studied the sphere. And now, is that time? She looked at him for a long moment before answering. If we do nothing, my people will fall, and your crew will be hunted down. But if we use this, it will end the battle instantly. The cost, however, could be the moon itself. The silence in the chamber stretched, outside, in the distant space above. The enemy fleet was closing in. Rian finally said, "Then we need to find a way to use it without destroying everything. There has to be a controlled method." Leora moved to a console built into the wall and began pressing alien symbols. The sphere pulsed brighter, responding to her commands. She paused, glancing at him. "I will need your help to stabilize the power. It requires two operators, and one must align the energy field manually." Rian nodded. "Tell me what to do." She guided him to a control station on the opposite side of the chamber. He placed his hands onto metal grips, feeling a strange tingling run up his arms. A panel lit up with shifting symbols. Leora's voice was calm but urgent. "When I say now, you will rotate the field stabilizers. It must be precise. If you miss the timing, the energy will collapse and overload." He took a steady breath. "Understood." She began the sequence, the chamber filled with a deep, thrumming sound as the sphere's glow intensified. Lines of light shot up the stone pillars, converging above the sphere. Rian's hands grew warm as the stabilizers vibrated under his grip. "Now," Leora called. He twisted the controls. A wave of light burst from the sphere, but instead of exploding outward, it formed a thin barrier that shimmered like water. The sound deepened, and Rian felt the air tighten around them. "It's working," Leora said, her voice rising over the hum. "The shield is forming. It will protect the station from the fleet's weapons. Outside, in orbit, the enemy ships. Open fire." Beams of energy struck the shimmering shield, but each blast was absorbed into the barrier like stones sinking into a pond. The fleet's formation broke slightly as confusion spread among their ranks. Rian watched the readings on his panel. "The power's holding, but it's draining fast." Leora's fingers flew over the console. "We can sustain it for a few hours at most. That will give us time to prepare a counterattack." The chamber shook as another volley from the fleet hit the shield. But the heart of Vera held strong. For the first time since the invasion began, there was hope in Leora's eyes. She looked at Rian. "You have done more than I expected, human. Together, we may yet see the dawn." Rian allowed himself a brief smile. "Then let's make sure we do." Far above, the enemy regrouped, unaware that the defenders below had just awakened a weapon of legend. The sky above the hidden city darkened as enemy ships appeared on the horizon. Red warning lights flashed throughout the underground halls, casting sharp shadows on the carved walls. Princess Leora stood beside Rian at the control panel deep within the crystal caverns. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes were steady and focused. "Rian, this is it," she said. "If we fail, everything we protect will be lost." Rian nodded, gripping the edge of the panel. "We won't fail. The defense systems just need a final activation. Together, our biometrics unlock the core." He placed his palm on the glowing sensor, and Leora followed with hers. The system hummed to life. Crystal panels along the cavern walls lit up, sending pulses of energy into the network dots. Suddenly, the first wave of enemy ships breached the planet's atmosphere. The underground city shook as energy beams fired upward, intercepting the attackers. The defense grid glowed brighter, casting a blue light through the tunnels. Despite the violence above, inside the chamber the tension was nearly unbearable. Rian and Leora worked side by side, monitoring systems, rerouting power, and coordinating the city's response. The enemy fire grew heavier, but the defense held strong. The ancient technology, long dormant, responded perfectly to their combined commands. After what felt like hours, the attack began to falter. Enemy ships started to retreat, their formations breaking apart. A cheer rose from the city's defenders. The council, watching from the chambers above, finally understood the danger had been real all along. Leora turned to Rian. "Without you, we would have lost everything. You gave us hope." Rian smiled, tired but proud. "We did this together, your people and mine." As dawn broke over the planet's surface, a new alliance was born, one that would shape the future of both their worlds.